Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1545.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. I'm revved up and very excited to share with you today a very special guest, Austin Paruch. Austin Paruch is the owner of Paruch Automotive Craftsmanship, I should say, in Appleton, Wisconsin. He and his team are specialists in automotive metal restoration and fabrication. Before starting his own company, Austin honed his craft, working on concours level restorations, including some of the most beautiful collector cars in the world. Ferraris, Maseratis, Royces, and many others. His true passion lies in Italian marques that are coach-built, specifically from the 50s. And today, he's building a one-off vehicle inspired by the designs of that era, an alloy body Barchetta he has nicknamed Strada Americana. So we're going to hear all about that. We'll be back in a moment to talk to Austin, but first, a valued word from our valued sponsors that make this show possible. We'll be right back. You know I'm a huge fan of Covercraft. I've protected my vehicles with their products for decades. Want to keep your vehicle's interior looking new? It's easy with Covercraft seat covers. They'll protect your seats from the daily abuse of pets, children, weekend adventures, and those everyday spills. It's a fast, easy, and inexpensive way to keep your vehicle looking new. All Covercraft seat protectors are easy on, easy off designs that are machine washable. You can choose from many fabric options, colors, and accessories, all designed and carefully sewn for your special vehicle. Their seat gloves are semi-custom fit for cars and trucks. Their seat savers are custom tailored to fit your seats, just like a glove. Work truck seat covers are tough, durable denim weight fabric. It's like putting a pair of rugged jeans on your truck's seats. Covercraft is the right choice. Learn a lot more today at covercraft.com and tell them Mark Green at Cars Yeah sent you. By the way, I've got a deal for you. You can get 10% off using the code YEAH120. That's YEAH120 at checkout. Go to covercraft.com, use the code YEAH120, and get 10% off today. Covercraft, they've got you covered. My favorite collector car magazine is Keith Martin's Sports Car Market. I've been a subscriber for decades. Sports Car Market is the Wall Street Journal for enthusiasts and collectors. It's your monthly must-read whether you dream of owning a collector car or if you have 200 in your garage. Sports Car Market has been around for 31 years, and it's filled with valuable articles, intelligent write-ups, and the latest auction sales. Go to sportscarmarket.com and subscribe today. Plus, you'll get an exclusive SCM guide to restoration shops included for free. And I've got a couple very cool offers. One is if you go and subscribe to their digital subscription, you're going to get 50% off using the code CARS Yeah. That's right, 50% off their digital subscription. But wait, that's not all. If you go and subscribe and get their print magazine and use the code BSH, you get $10 off. That's right, $10 off. Why BSH? Well, that's the Buy, Sell, Hold podcast that I do every Tuesday with Keith Martin. You'll find it here on the Cars Yeah website or using your mobile device with any mobile device podcast app, or you can find it at sportscarmarket.com. That's Buy, Sell, Hold, the essence of collecting. Hey, Austin, welcome to Cars Yeah. Are you buckled up and ready for a fun ride?
I am.
All right. It's really nice to have you here. Before we jump into the questions, and I'm excited also to hear about this build that you're doing. Sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Could you tell our listeners one little thing about yourself that maybe most people don't know?
Initially out of high school, I went to art school for sculpture.
That's cool.
And that's something most people don't know. It helped segue me into the automotive world, at least the craftsman part of it.
Right.
But it's sort of a roundabout way again.
Well, I think it's fascinating, and it makes a world of sense to me because when you go to art school, design school, one of the big keys there is to help you see things and understand things. And of course, you hone your craft and being a sculptor. Definitely, that's what you do every day is you sculpt things, but you're sculpting them out of metal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sheet metal primarily. We fabricate a lot of other components too, but you have to have You have to have a pretty keen eye. And I think that's, really something that going to school helped me develop.
Oh, absolutely. My son worked one summer in a shop helping, and his whole project that summer, it was when he was in high school, was working on a Ferrari. And he would come home at night and say, Dad, these cars are so beautiful from the outside, but taking this thing apart, I'm wondering about the people that were building this thing, because he said under the skin, things are just really haphazard and bizarre. And he said, I was taking out the front headlights, it was a Daytona, taking out the headlight buckets. And he said, I was looking at them and thinking, I don't think these are the same measurements. And he said they were off by about 1/8 of an inch on the width. And I said, well,
eighth of an inch is minimal.
Yeah,
in
probably.
that world.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen cars with quarter panels that are, 1.5 inches longer than the other side of the car.
Yeah, one guy working on one side, one the other, and
that's the story. That's what they keep telling me.
A little bit too much Chianti for lunch, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think though that some of that asymmetry makes them more beautiful. I think that's part of the reason that they've gained so much clout as art.
Well, hand-built, and the car that we're going to talk about in a moment that your coach built, if I should say, that you're working on, we'll learn a little bit more about. But you're right. They were really works of art when you look at some Scaglietti cars and even the old Pininfarinas and the Ferraris, of course, and so many of those cars, especially the Italian. I know why you love those so much. They were rolling works of art. They still are today, and I think it's fantastic that you learn these things as you start to develop, because nowadays everything is just so stamped and perfect, and there's not a lot of life to them in many respects.
No, there's not so much soul,
Exactly.
The cars develop their own personality kind of as people work on them, not just at the factory, but over the years as different people have repaired it and
right.
or raced it or whatever. They take that along with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's lots of stories. I had a Carmagia in high school, and I promptly ripped it all apart to put a bigger engine in and modify it. That's what you do when you're in high school. And decided to get bold and take all the paint off that car and paint it a different color. And when I got to the front, those wonderful noses, I looked at it and I said, boy, somebody was a sculptor here, because the nose had been bashed in, and instead of fixing it properly, they just crafted it with Bondo.
I know. I've seen so much stuff. It's amazing what people can do with Bondo, unfortunately, because there's a better way. But I guess if you're budget-minded, it's going to have to get you there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start with a success quote that has some meaning for you, or maybe it's a mantra, something that maybe you live by or your shop lives by. It's a nice way to get the English wheel turning, since we're talking about bodywork here on Cars. Yeah, so Austin, grab the wheel.
So, yeah, I have one quote that kind of stands out in my mind, certainly as I assemble a business and bring people into work for me, and that's that there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. That's a quote by, I believe it's Jocko Willink or Leif Babin. I can't remember who, but it was from their Extreme Ownership book, if I recall correctly. I just listened to one of your fellow guests bring them up a little while ago.
Yeah.
I guess for me, if things aren't going the right way, it's up to me to make it go righter.
Yeah.
And just to, grab the wheel and do it.
Well, leadership is so important, and it is lacking in a lot of companies. And you talked with a lot of people that work at a place where they're so disgruntled by their bosses or by their leaders or their managers. And I really believe that there should be more courses on that. Either college or even high school should have a leadership course on how to be a great leader, because companies that are led by great leaders, people don't leave, people love them. They'll work extra hard for a strong leader. And that particular book and that quote is absolutely true, I think, in many ways. I was just talking with a guest yesterday where we were discussing leadership, where in the military, this one leader would take a group of guys out for training, and they have different tiers in the military, of course. And then he would come onto the field and say, okay, you 4 guys are dead now. How well have you trained and led the other part of the group so they can continue with the mission? Or are they just lost without the leader? And then they're going to all be dead. And I thought that was an interesting process, because back when I was running a company, I used to have a term called, what if they were hit by a bus? Meaning, what if this one person in the chain of group of people were hit by a bus and they weren't there anymore? Would the whole operation cease to exist?
Oh, well, that's smart. Even
Right.
as the business owner, you have to apply that to yourself.
Right.
If you get
Exactly.
hit by the bus tomorrow, can your employees show up for work?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And I had another great mentor talk to me about you need to create a business that can operate without you being there. And then you know you're successful. And you look at somebody like Penske, who has so many companies, and you think, how on earth does he run that many companies? Well, he doesn't run those companies. He hires very competent people to run those companies and provides the leadership and the direction and the focus and the tools and supplies so they can do it right. So it's a great quote.
Yep.
I love it. That's super. Well, let's talk more about your business. I would love for you to share more about what you do there, all the different services that you provide, and then dive in afterwards into this Strada Americana car that you're building, the little bodied Barchetta that you're working on.
Sure.
I find it fascinating. So let's start with the business, Paruch Automotive Craftsmanship.
So yeah, we specialize in automotive metal restoration of any brand, really. We love working on cool old vintage Italian stuff, of course, but we also take care of, muscle cars from local customers, and anything from small repair jobs to building a roll cage for a race car to full-blown major concours restoration work.
So you're basically craftsmen and fabricators.
Yep. We've got 3.5 employees. Another, my main guy.
What does that one half guy do? I'm curious about that.
He's learning.
He's learning.
He's learning. There's a significant learning curve.
Oh, yeah.
So regardless of how excited you may be, it takes time, and to work at the level that we expect.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really be a novice. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's great that you have somebody that's in training, if you will, because you've always got to be feeding that machine. And I've had hundreds of fabricators and builders and designers on this show. Everybody from someone with a one-man shop up to hundreds of people working in their facility. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be one of the challenges these days, is finding people, young people or old people, but young people who want to go into this business. Has that been a challenge for you?
It is a challenge. The guys that I know in this business are about my age. I'm 37. Mm-hmm. The guy I was telling you about, he's younger. He's in his 20s. And I know a couple of other younger guys, really hungry and learning in this trade. They don't work for me, but they're out there. I think you got to go to the right places to find them. There's a couple of schools that are spitting out some decent guys every once in a while. But you got to scoop them up. You got to see if you can find them. That's the tough part, because out of every class, maybe there's a couple of guys that are really good at metal, and a couple of guys that are really good at upholstery, and a couple of guys that are really good at painting or whatever. And then a lot of guys, from what I can tell, find themselves into, the insurance or auction world from some of those programs.
Exactly. Well, when did you realize that what you're doing in your career and the business that you've created was the right thing for you?
It's a good question. I probably should have gone straight into automotive after high school. I wasn't entirely positive about which direction I needed to go, but after doing the art school thing and kind of floundering around with different jobs, kind of had this thought that I would go back through a tech program and get into it. And once I got into it, the skill sets that I had already developed through other work and education allowed me to move quite rapidly through, not only the schooling, but into jobs where I could challenge myself and prove myself. And, once I got to that point, it's like, well, this is where I need to be. This is what I want to do. This is what's fun. So it took some time. It wasn't until probably into my 20s that this is what I figured out what I wanted to do. My later 20s.
Some people can't figure it out when they're in their 50s.
Yeah.
You're way ahead of the curve. What's one of the favorite parts of your business for you? What do you like doing the most in your business?
Well, we talked about bringing up the Strada Americana build, and that's what's most exciting to me right now. Mm-hmm. It allows me to be creative. This is a project that I'm funding. It's a way to showcase what we can do from scratch and be creative. And, that's the stuff that I'm excited about when I'm sitting around at home. That's what I'm dreaming about.
Yeah. Where did this idea for this car come from? Because is it going to be something completely custom from the ground up, chassis and body and everything?
Yeah, we're building the chassis. The only thing we're not building It's the suspension components. We're sourcing pre-existing suspension components that intended for Mazda Miata, but they're perfect for the weight and scale of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to re-engineer all the geometry. We know
that it
we know it works at the track.
Sure.
So, I mean, those things are obviously great track cars.
Yeah.
So we just decided to skip all that headache and expense and just adapt those to our chassis that we're currently building. And then I had a guy that I met through Facebook, actually, who's a designer, and we just kind of got to talking, and I told him I wanted to build my own car, and one thing led to another, and all of a sudden we had a 3D rendering of a car that was
nice,
loosely based off of a lot of the cars we've worked on. I think one car that really influenced wanting to do this, I restored an Oscar, or I was part of the restoration of an Oscar.
Beautiful cars.
A couple of years ago. Cool little cars.
Yeah.
And, we had that car pretty far into the restoration, pretty far disassembled. And we're like, this thing is so easy. We could build this thing in a weekend.
Oh, sure. Right. Yeah. It's so
maybe
easy.
Maybe not a weekend. That's exaggeration. But I'm like, let's just build a car. We can do it. I know we can do it. We both, the guy that works with me, we've both been dreaming about it for years. So we just started putting our heads together. We made the design, and now we're building it.
Well, it's fascinating. Were you able to be at Pebble a few years ago when they had all those Oscars out at the end of the fairway there?
No, but the car that I'm talking about was there.
Was it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly have never been to Pebble. It's high on my list.
You
something I want to do this year.
Yeah.
I'm usually too busy building cars.
Well, I understand that.
Or restoring cars. So.
Well, if you want a little tip, this will be my 32nd year in a row going to Pebble. So if you want a little tip after this show, we can talk about that, because there's a bit of planning you need to do. And of course, this year with this pandemic, we'll see what happens. We'll all have our fingers crossed that we can all be at Car Week in August. But there's a lot of moving parts. But the main thing is finding a place to stay. And you need to do that promptly, because they all get filled up. I think you should go. And that field was so spectacular. And one of my past guests, Tim Considine, who actually was in the original Mickey Mouse Club and was a TV actor back in the 50s and 60s. He bought one with his money he'd earned from Disney, and he actually raced it under a pseudonym name because his contract stated he couldn't race when he was a teenager. And he was reunited with his old car on the lawn there. I walked up to that blue car and he was standing there, and I said, "Tim, how you doing?" And I've had his son Chris on the show too. He builds spectacular simulators. And he said, "This is my old car I talked about on your show." And we stood there, and you could just almost see a tear in his eye as he was remembering and sharing those early experiences. He learned how to drive a stick shift in the back lot at Disney. One of the guards would teach him at night, unbeknownst to his mom. So it was a great story.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, do you have an end date?
Cool.
Have you set an end date for this build that you're doing?
I would love to have it completed, rolling chassis, not necessarily a rubbing driving car, but body on. Rolling chassis. I would love to have it done by July.
July. Cool. Okay.
And the reason that is, I don't know if this will be going on or not, but we're very close to Road America. And they have a very cool vintage race event in July.
Yes.
I was hoping to drag it out there.
That'd be great.
Set up a little booth.
Sounds like a good car to take to SEMA.
Yeah, I think it would be. It's unique. SEMA is it's a little different. I don't know if I've seen much stuff like this at SEMA. I've been to SEMA once, but I obviously watch what's going on there.
This would be fine. They have the competition of the builders. In fact, the car last year that was built by another guest here, Louis Shevchik from J&L Fabrications, was a wonderful kind of hot-rodded version of I think it was an ISO Revolta. And yeah, so no, they do custom cars. I mean, there's everything at SEMA, rat rods and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I think maybe that would be a good place to debut it as well. Well, let's talk about a challenge or a failure that you've faced in your career, your business. Walk us through something, but more importantly, what was the lesson you took out of that so that you could move forward in a positive way? Okay.
I guess we kind of already touched on how I probably should have made my way into the automotive world right after high school.
Well, who knows what they want in high school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Yeah, don't be so hard on yourself.
I'm not. But that one took a little time to course correct. But I guess we can talk about something I did on a car while I was in high school that was sort of an epic failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I had bought a 1988 Mustang. That was my first car. My dad and I bought it. 5-liter V8, fun car. And it needed a paint job. So I got it in my head that I was going to sand it and prep it and do the paint job in my parents' garage. So I spent unknown hours prepping it and got it all ready. And my parents went on a vacation, took the weekend off or something. And I'm like, well, this is the perfect time to paint the car. So I got a makeshift little booth set up in there and air compressor going. And I started to paint the car, and I realized I had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
Oops.
And the garage was filling up with paint mist and whatnot. And I got about halfway around the car, and I'm like, I can't even keep going. So,
oh my
so
goodness,
I didn't get the car painted. I wound up dragging it to a local dealership that had a body shop, and they did something really, really, really nice for me, and they sanded it off and painted it for $500.
Wow. Yeah, that is very nice.
I think they felt, I know, they had somebody in training, I think, at the time.
Okay.
And, they probably just covered her expenses, and she did a really nice job. So
painting a car is definitely an art, as you know now, but it sounds simple. That's how you learn things, is by trying and testing. So I'm proud that you tried it. Nice job. Somebody came to your rescue.
No, I had a ton of fun with that car after. I mean, nothing was lost other than a quart of paint, probably.
Yeah, and a little time. And
no harm done.
Yeah, and a little respect for painters. Well, let's take a short break, thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back. If you're listening to Cars Yeah, you've probably spent some time working on your favorite ride. But how confident are you working on your finances? You may be able to rebuild a fuel injection system, but can you decipher the details of a mutual fund? If you're like me, investments, insurance, annuities, budgeting, and other financial concepts may seem a bit daunting, but what if I told you there's a book that describes these subjects and more in an easy-to-read and a very humorous way? My friend Chris Kimball, CFP, a longtime sponsor and past guest here on Cars Yeah, has written that book, and it's titled The Saga of Eicken Penny, a couple's humorous journey through the confusing world of finance. It's a fun look at things you need to know, everything from investing to effective ways to get rid of credit card debt, and it's probably the only book on finance with a VMAX on the front cover and a classic Mini Cooper on the back. The book's available at Amazon for just $10, and this book will dramatically improve the direction of your financial future. I gave copies to each of my children. All securities are through Money Concepts Capital Corp. Christopher Kimball Financial Services is not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp. Get your copy, The Saga of Eicken Penny, today. Right, we're back, and I would love for you to share a story that instigated this personal passion you have for cars, kind of a pivotal moment in your life when you knew that you were going to be a car guy.
Hard to pinpoint exactly. I think I've always liked them. Even when I was a little kid, I remember having, they're not really trading cards. They're bigger than trading cards, maybe 8x8, and they're like flashcards with cars, historic cars with all the stats and pictures and price values and measurements and displacements. I don't know where I got them, but I had those for years. And I just flipped through them, looking at them, like, oh, Duesenberg, oh, Ferrari, and oh, Allard, that's cool. And I was always building models when I was a kid. Sure. And, when I got the Mustang we just talked about, I remember just working on the car in the garage, kind of being in a very peaceful state. So maybe that's the time.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the hint, rattling around the garage, feeling like I just need to build stuff.
Yeah, that's where you need to be.
Yeah, that's where you need to be. So I guess that's probably about as close as I can come to a pivotal moment.
Was there an Austin in that flashcard set?
I'm sure there was.
That's cool.
Yep.
Very nice.
It was very diverse.
Well, I always ask people to talk about the first really special car in their world. Was it that Mustang, or was there something else that came along later that was much more special for you?
No, that was probably the most special. I'll be completely honest. I don't have a whole lot of fun cars in my life because I've spent so much time working on others. I drive practical cars, and whether or not the Strada project, somebody wants to jump in and buy it, I suppose they could. But initially, I was planning on building it for myself.
Well, I hope you get to spend some time behind the wheel once you're done with that thing, enjoying it. I'm sure it'll put a big smile on your face. I think that'd be cool. Let me ask you a question I'll bet nobody's ever asked you. If you woke up tomorrow and you were a vehicle, what would Austin be and why?
That's a challenging question.
Good.
I do have an answer. I think we'd all like to think of ourselves as something a little more high performance, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I've come to the conclusion that I'm probably closest to like a mid-'80s Toyota 4x4 pickup truck.
Okay, and why is that?
Well, they're reliable. They like to spend time outside. They're born in the 80s. I'm tall. They're kind of tall trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of quirky, a little goofy. I don't know if you remember those trucks.
Oh,
They
yeah.
had a lot of them anyways, carried like a monochromatic decal set or graphics.
Of course, yeah.
And I always really liked those, and they sort of appeal to my style sense. So I guess, utilitarian, still kind of fun,
Mm-hmm.
kind of quirky. So, yeah.
That's what you're all about. Nice
It's,
answer.
it's not a Ferrari, it's not a Jaguar, but it's probably closer to the truth.
There you go. Well, it's good to always face the truth. So I think that works out fine. All right. Well, we're coming up to kind of a lightning round here, the last lap. I'm going to fire off some questions to get some very quick blips of that Toyota throttle from you. So here we go. What's one of your personal habits you believe has contributed to your successes over the years?
I think it's my willingness to dive into things. I'm not afraid to screw up. I'm not afraid to fail. Or at least I'm not afraid enough to keep me from doing it. I think there's always a little bit of fear that you might, but you do it anyway, and realize that if you do, that's an opportunity to learn more. So I've never really been, especially in the car world, if it's something, can I build this? I don't know, I'll try. If I can't, I'll try again.
The old Nike saying, just do it. How about if I could arrange for you to have a drink or a meal with anyone in the automotive industry, living or deceased? Who would that individual be?
If I could go back and pop a bottle of wine with some of the guys, I can't name an individual, but some of the coach builders from Scaglietti or Vignale or Pininfarina, I think that would be really cool, just to experience their life in the shop. If you could tell them, hey, this car you're building is going to be worth $38 million.
$38 million someday. Yeah, they'd fall off the stool.
Yeah. I just think that could be a really fascinating experience. Another guy, I think, if you need to put a name, would be Phil Remington, largely responsible for a lot of the success of the Shelby Cobra racing program.
Right.
So I would go with the people that did the building. That's the kind of stuff that interests me the most.
Artisans, designers, craftsmen. How about the best automotive advice someone else has given you? What was that?
I think we talked about this a little before. Well, you can't see both sides of the car at the same time. So in terms of, being the builder or restoring the cars, it can be very challenging to restore an asymmetrical car because you want to make it symmetrical
right.
as much as possible, but you can't always. You start detracting from the original build quality. So there's definitely something to be said for that. You can't see both sides at the same time.
I like it. How about a go-to resource that you find very useful that you think others would as well?
It's not specifically automotive, but I love podcasts. I listen to the Tim Ferriss show a ton.
Yep.
There's just a lot of really interesting, intelligent people on there. I've learned a lot about business from that show. Lots of good book recommendations. So, it doesn't have to be that, but I think podcasts are a great way to learn from people that are doing things that you want to be doing.
Well, that's what Cars Yeah is all about. People learning from Austin Paruch about how to have a creative life around building cars and fabricating cars. Yeah, There's so many great podcasts these days. It's just incredible. Now, you mentioned books. Is there a book that you'd like to share with our listeners that you think they should read?
Yeah, if we go back to the quote earlier, I'd say Extreme Ownership. I thought that was one of the best books. I've both read and listened to it probably a dozen times, just revisiting certain parts. I just really liked the message. It's really interesting. There's a lot of war stories in there that are quite fascinating too. So there's a historical lesson, but also lessons learned and how it can be applied to a life in business.
Right.
I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, my son loves listening to the Jocko Willink podcast, and extreme ownership is, I think the subtitles that has to do with how U.S. Navy SEALs lead and win. Of course, he's an extreme guy, so that's for sure. But my son's always sending me these messages. Hey, Dad, you should listen to the show today with Jocko. It's really cool. So yeah, it's a great book, Extreme Ownership. I'll make sure I put a link to that book on Austin's show notes page. Just go to carsyeah.com, type in Austin Paruch, Paruch, and you'll find links to that. By the way, on the Cars Yeah website, you'll find a great category under resources called Guest Recommended Books, where there's over 1,600 books there. I have them all conveniently linked so you can pick them up very quickly, so check it out. But of course, Extreme Ownership is one of the great ones. I think that's been recommended many times here. All right, Austin, we're up to the last question here. It's a bit of a doozy. I'm going to buy you any cool collector car that exists out there today. Doesn't matter who owns it or where it is. I'm going to park it in your garage to drive, but there's some rules to this game. One is you can't sell it to fund your own project or your shop or whatever you want to do with money. So you got to keep it if you pick an expensive car. You have to drive it.
Sure.
No garage queens. And here's the kicker. And I'm going to exclude the car you're building because it's not done yet, but it's the only one collector car you can have. So it needs to tick all the boxes. What's it going to be?
Okay. One question for you.
Yeah.
Can I cut it up and modify it?
Once it's yours, you can do whatever you want with it.
Oh,
so
boy.
I like that question though. That's a great question.
I think I probably would have more fun with it if I could do that.
Okay.
But
all right.
the car that I have in mind, I would have a real hard time doing that too. And I think many other people in the world would also.
Let's see how many people we can make cringe today.
250 Tdf.
Oh, okay.
Ferrari Tdf. I love those cars. I love just everything about the shapes of those cars.
Uh-huh.
I've dreamt several times about building a replica, but kind of in more of a modern resto mod sort of build setup with modern suspension and things like that. Like, no one could cut something like that up. That would hurt.
Yeah,
really hurt,
you got a couple folks cringing out here. I've had the fun. I've had some friends up here in the Northwest who's had those, and I've got to spend a day with those. Even got to ride in one. I think these days they're, I don't know, what they're worth now, 5-7 million, maybe more.
Yeah, probably 5 to 10, I would guess.
Yeah, you know what though about those cars? I like what year are you talking about? Because I know they did different variations of those cars. If you look at the early ones, which are the ones I like better than the late 50s.
I like the later ones.
Do you?
Actually, the longer nose.
The longer nose, okay.
Yeah, I just like that. Something about it. It just works for me visually.
Well, here's what I think you should do. I'll buy you one of those. But the later ones from the 58, 57, 58, you got to fix the back end. I just don't like those back fenders. It's almost,
really? The little fins?
I something doesn't work with the front of the car for me. I don't know. It's just a design aesthetic thing. I'm sure there's some folks raising eyebrows right now to that comment, but for some reason the back end looks more like a touring car and the front looks more like a race car.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for me. That's why the older ones, I think I like them a little better. Like the 56, the back end is kind of 250 GT short wheelbase-ish. But I love the rounded front part of that car. It's more reminds me of a Barchetta type car with the egg crate grill and all that. So, but they're all marvelous. I mean, I'm not picking on any of them. And
they're gorgeous cars.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Here's the goal, or the nice thing here. If I buy you one of these things, is you don't have to worry about the price. So you can do whatever you want to it, and it's your car. So why the heck not? Have some fun with it. All right.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well,
I wouldn't cut it.
Okay. Well, good. Yeah. There's some people right now going, oh, thank goodness. He's not going to do that to the car, but I understand. Maybe what you need to do, and you're already doing it with that Americana you're building, is do a tribute. So you could build a second one and do a tribute to that car. So
and maybe that's in the future. That would be awesome. I hope this Strada Americana build that we're doing isn't the first, because I really find it fun to be creative. So, or I'm sorry, isn't the last.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, the first and the last. Now, it's just the beginning for you, I'm sure, my friend.
Yep.
You're going to be fine. Well, listen, you've taken us on a fun ride. This has been great. I want to thank you for sharing your business and your life. Is there a little parting piece of wisdom or guidance you might offer us before you rip off into the sunset in that 250 Ferrari Tdf?
No, I guess. But just have fun doing what you're doing. If you're not having fun doing what you're doing, go find something fun and do that. That's about it. You know, if people want to learn more about me, they can find my website, check out the business. It's www.paruchautomotivecraftsmanship.com.
Okay.
I probably should have picked an easier URL, but if you Google a name, I'm sure you can find it. So
I'm sure you will. I'll make sure I put links to that and to all you obviously probably have social media as well that people can find you on.
Yep. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. They're both Paruch Automotive.
Cool. All right. I'll make sure I put links to all those so you listeners can find him very quickly. I'd encourage you to follow along. And tell you what, Austin, when you finish that car, you got to send me pictures so I can share that with my followers and we can show them what you have created.
I will definitely do that.
Yeah, please do. Please keep in touch because we all want to see what you end up doing, especially if we're going to see it this year. I think it'll be great.
I hope so.
Hey, thanks for being so generous today with your time and expertise, for sharing your life with us. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are you looking for a way to get your products or services into the ears of thousands of automotive enthusiasts around the globe? I can help. This is Mark Green here at Cars Yeah, and I'd be honored to be an influencer and ambassador for your brand in a unique and personal way. 5 days a week, thousands of subscribers and listeners enjoy the Cars Yeah podcast and website. Contact me today and I'll show you how at mark@carsyeah.com or connect with me through the Cars Yeah website at carsyeah.com.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.